Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we talk to entertainment attorney Jason White and owner of StreamCut, Stein, discussing monetizing your digital content, the various ways to get paid, and the importance of artist split sheets. This particular podcast stems from our monthly weekend workshops, so if you're ever interested in attending, please visit our website at patchwerk.com. For today's workshop, we're going to be talking about making money still, but for your digital content, all right? How can you maximize your sales on numerous platforms? How can you actively place claims on your original work and make sure you're compensated? Artists and labels make the majority of the money, but what do you have to show for it, right? So, without further ado, I want to welcome Stein and Jason White. Y'all give them a round of applause. How you guys doing? So, I want to introduce you to the owner of the company, StreamCut, Stein, and attorney Jason White. All right? So, thank you, one, for coming out to speak to us. That's amazing. We appreciate your time. I know you both are busy, have families, and you came early this morning on a Saturday, so I appreciate you. So, Philip, can you tell us a little bit about your company, StreamCut, and what services are offered for musicians and artists?
Sure. We offer a pretty broad range of services. Really, anywhere there is an opportunity for artists, producers, labels to make money online or with content generally, we are going to try to tap it. So the kind of backbone of our business is YouTube monetization and publishing, but we also get into other areas as well. We're helping with distribution. We are helping with SoundCloud monetization. We're helping with apps and helping people get on Musical.ly and Triller, and really jumping off from there. And we have some artist clients that we are helping shoot videos for, arrange studio time, hook them up with producer clients, with the artist clients, and things like that. Really just a full service that we are trying to offer for.
Dope. And could you tell us how you actually got started in this business and getting involved in the music industry as a whole?
Sure. My first involvement was probably 7-8 years ago when we this was something I was doing on the side, trying to find young artists and help them make money online, because it's complicated. We found a group that had just a viral song that was on YouTube, and they really weren't doing much with it. And we helped them get it to a distribution partner, monetize it on YouTube, because the problem they were having is their video became a real early kind of viral dance hit. And they had 1 million other people that reposted their song, and they were only making money off the video that was on their official YouTube channel. So there was this other, 8,000 videos out there that they just weren't making any money on. So working with them and the distribution partner, we were able to go in and start claiming everything for them. And they really, for the first time, saw real money from that song. And so that was something I was doing part-time. And then we did it, and just continued to do it. And then about a year ago, I decided, and in talking with Jason, who's an entertainment attorney, that this seemed like something that, I wanted to transition to more of a full-time thing and start my own company and really grow it.
And so that's how StreamCut was developed.
That's how it was born. So
dope. So, Jason, how did you get involved with Philip and StreamCut, or what's your position with all that he's doing with StreamCut?
Phil, I dragged him into this. Phil and I went to Emory Law School together 15 years ago. So we met back then, and I've been working as an entertainment attorney since getting out of Emory. And so this has just been something I've been working on for years. And as he said, he had an opportunity to he understands the tech side of it a lot better than I think I do.
Yeah.
And that's something he brings to the table, but also that background knowledge that he has.
So we have some artists in the building. By show of hands, how about producers, songwriters, managers, bloggers? Awesome. Cool. So we do have a diverse, versatile audience here wanting to know about this content here. So you guys met each other through law school,
Yep.
and you kind of just managed or are helping out in terms of like the legalities, because I'm sure there's a lot that goes along with not just for you, Philip, but for the clients that you have, right?
Yeah, music is, as probably a lot of people in the room have experienced, is just a giant ball of problems when it comes to the legal side of things, particularly hip hop, rap music. The rights issues are sometimes overwhelming, I think, for artists. And one of the nice things about working with Phil, I have a lot of different clients, but one of the nice things about working with him is he brings that understanding of copyright law and the issues that come with it. And I think that uniquely positions him to help out like the folks in the room.
Right. And speaking of hip hop, Jason, you mentioned that, or you both mentioned that hip hop is one of the hardest genres to deal with in terms of this, like maximizing or monetizing your sales or streams everywhere, because it's just everywhere. What makes hip hop so difficult to as a genre to work with, aside from like other genres like rock or pop?
You want to try that one? Yeah. I think what happens in rap particularly is that guys work together who on a one-time basis sometimes. So a producer gets together with an artist. They don't have that prior history. Maybe neither of them understands the legal issues at play when they create a song together. They don't understand the copyrights involved. A lot of times they don't understand how to make money with the thing as well, and then who gets what percent of the money, if any, when it's done. Mm-hmm. And usually, in my experience, they're sometimes not even in the same room when they make the song. Somebody makes a beat, he puts it up on the internet, he emails it, whatever he's got it posted, it's on SoundCloud, wherever it is. Somebody else raps over it, and now it's working. And now what? I have countless clients who will come to me and say, I got this beat, I don't know where it came from. I just found it on the internet, or somebody gave it to me, or I heard it in a studio. And now you have to go kind of recreate and figure out, all right, where did we get it from? What are the rights issues at play? Who owned it originally? Who owns it now? Who can make money off it? So it's just a...
So I guess the question for either of you is, what do we do to avoid those issues in terms of, I guess it comes down to, especially for producers or artists in general, the split sheets.
Yep.
What does that mean? We've talked about this briefly in other workshops, but we want to know what that means and what it means for the artist and the producer. Like, how do we get our money?
How do you get your money? Good
How
question.
do we get our money?
Hire Phil.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, the situation that most of my clients get into is you're in a studio, you're recording, it's friendly, right? This is a social environment, and you guys are doing something creative and everybody feels good, and nobody wants to be the guy who takes out a piece of paper and tries to get everybody to sign off on what their rights are in that environment. And the problem sets in the next day or a week later or a month later when the song comes out and you frankly don't know who owns the master rights. You don't know who owns the publishing, which for producers is particularly important because if you do a song with a major label, especially, there's this assumption that the label or the label artist is going to own the majority, if not all, of that master recording. So really what you are getting paid on is your publishing. And that split sheet becomes vital because as a producer, you want to lock in your publishing. What are your ownership in that underlying composition? Because you need to file that with, ASCAP and BMI. You need to load that with, YouTube publishing you guys can claim. There's other organizations like Harry Fox and Music Reports that you can load that with as well. Did you do other things? Did you get a letter of direction as a publisher to get Sound Exchange money? There's just a million things that, if at that time in the studio or immediately thereafter, you guys put things down on paper, it's going to make your life easier, especially if a song becomes a hit. So...
Yeah, I was just going to jump in on the split sheet question. I think a lot of people get confused too as to what they're even writing down. What does it all mean? So when you make a song, you have to think of there being kind of two separate things at the same time. there's a master side and a publishing side. And publishing just means songwriting, same thing. So in rap, you're typically doing both. You have ownership in both things. That's not the case in every genre of music. A lot of times you just have somebody who's writing a song in Kansas and someone's performing it in New York, there, right? But in rap, you're typically, whether you're a producer or an artist, creating both publishing, songwriting, and you're creating a master. And you have to keep in mind who owns what. So a split sheet is typically a way to divide up the songwriting. So in rap, the kind of baseline process is the producer gets 50% and the vocalists get the other 50%. So if you've got, and there's no fixed rules on that. You can chop that up however you want to do it. That's just kind of what's evolved as a custom. And so what you're doing on a split sheet typically is if you're the producer, is you want to just take a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be formal at all. You have everybody's name on the piece of paper. Ideally, everybody signs it and you write your percentage next to it. And what you're really doing there is defining what percent of this song did I write and do I own. So if the producer's got 50%, the other guys who wrote the verses, the hook, whatever, are going to divide up the remaining 50%. But that's just defining the songwriting. Where it gets particularly tricky for guys, and where guys don't, I think, have a firm understanding of it, is there's also this master side. The master is what you're distributing. That's what you're selling. And Phil touched on it before. The industry's evolved in the major label system. The majors always own the masters. So when you as an artist get signed to a major label, what you're doing is immediately assigning rights in the master to the label. You're saying, you guys own this now, I don't. What you're retaining is your rights as a songwriter, and that's what you're defining on those split sheets. But as an independent artist, and most of you guys are independent, you're retaining an ownership in both of those. So when you get in a room with a producer or another artist, you not only want to figure out what's my split on this song, you want to figure out who owns this song. Do we own it together? Do I own it? And that gets tricky, and Phil mentioned it's a hard conversation for some guys to have. And that's a lot of where his business comes in, is helping producers and helping artists understand and define that ownership of the master and who has rights in it. What you find a lot of times is a song gets made, nobody really knows who owns what. Maybe you know the splits, maybe you don't, and it finds its way on the internet, and now money's being made.
And no one knows where it's going.
Right.
Wow. So you tend to work with a lot of producers. Why have producers become your primary client at this point? What is it about producers that need your service?
Producers, and just based upon industry custom, we're always kind of a party that was left out. They're left out of the distribution process. They're really not paid on the master at all. You might get an advance. If you're doing a major label record, there is a potential there for a good advance, especially for big time producers. But if you're a working producer, not on that level, you might get a couple $100 advance on a beat, but then you're not going to see any more money on the master side. So there's just a potential there to help them with the publishing side. There's a potential to help them understand, okay, where else do I have rights in this? What have I not given up? What is potentially out there for me? YouTube is interesting because YouTube has it's where the majority of people are getting music. That's where young kids get music, let's put it that way. And they're the ones who really drive charts. So because of that, YouTube has great tools. They have a publishing tool that allows companies like mine to go in and actually establish rights for producers, claim their songwriting within YouTube videos, and have money that actually starts flowing to them that they've really never seen before.
I'm sorry, is this the account, or you have a special account with StreamCut and YouTube that allows you to monitor this?
Yeah, it's a very different account than kind of the standard user's account, which is really, it allows you to post a video. It lets you tell them, this is the standard user. You could post a video. It tells them, yes, I want to monetize it. And then it'll show you some stats on it. And that's about it. Our account is much different. Our account shows us, every video that's in YouTube. It shows us who's claiming that video. If we look it up, it can drill into the assets and look at the underlying publishing assets, the songwriting, who wrote the music that is playing in this video, and then claim that on a percentage basis for the songwriters, including the producers. So it really does. We have, like I said, a lot of producer clients, and they're seeing for the first time real money from YouTube going through this process. Because normally, if you do a song with a major label, or even somebody who just distributes it with TuneCore or CD Baby or Empire or one of these other companies, most of that money, if not all of that money, is going to flow back to the artist or the label, and you're not going to see it as a producer. But you can come in on the back end, put that publishing claim in within YouTube, and for the first time, start to get money. And my clients, they're excited about that.
That's awesome. I would be excited too, getting my money. Yeah.
Can I jump in on that point too and try and help people understand the way the industry's evolved, particularly over, if you go back 20 years ago or however far you want to go back, the way music used to be made and monetized was that a label would sign an artist to a 6-album deal or whatever it was, and then the label and that artist would go out and engage producers to make beats for them, make music for them. And it was clear that the understanding was the label now owns the master, the artist is signed to the label, and you as the producer are working for that artist and that label. And you're being paid an advance, typically, which is, so remember what's happening here. You're working with this artist, they own the master. You're being paid an advance on royalties that you're going to get from sales of that master. So historically, that might be a 3-point royalty, a 3% royalty, something like that. Mm-hmm. If you're a more successful producer, maybe it's 4, maybe it's 5. And what that really means in English is if $1 is made on a sale, or before in CDs, it's $11 or $15, whatever it was, you're getting 3% of that sales revenue. But there's going to be a million types of deductions and hits, and you got to recoup and all these different things that come in. So going back to the question, though, why does he work with so many producers? All of that's changed. Not so much on the major label system. The majors still operate like that, but most of the people in the room and most of the people in the world, I think, are putting out their own music independently. Mm-hmm. So in a system where the major label owns or keeps 85% of the money or something like that, right? If an artist gets a 15% royalty, the producer's getting 3%, just a piece of that artist royalty, and the major labels owning the remaining or keeping the remaining 85% of the money, all of that totally changes when you're making music on your own. If you, like Phil said, if you're putting it out on TuneCore, CD Baby, or Empire, whatever you're doing. So now, all right, who's going to get that 85%? The major's out of the picture. Why does it all go to the artist? Why isn't more of that going to the producer? Why are producers taking just cash up front and no royalty? Why are they still taking a 3-point royalty? Right. Why aren't they shifting up? So it gives Phil a real opportunity to help producers better understand what their rights are and better make money, monetize things.
So my next question would be, aside from the producer aspect, you work with a lot of major label clients, correct?
Yeah, we have clients across the spectrum, including quite a few major label clients who, they're obviously more complicated. And because they're usually under contract to the major labels, and their rights, for the most part, are spoken for, either through their major label deal or through a publishing deal with a major publisher. So with them, a lot of times it's finding the gaps where they are not monetizing and nobody has claimed rights in it. It could be things like back catalog. So what
does that mean exactly?
Back catalog means, so before I signed a deal with Warner, for example, I did 3 mixtapes, and there's no paperwork on them, and my Warner deal didn't touch those 3 mixtapes. And when I went out and signed my Warner deal and we did an EP and it's great and it's selling, well, now all of a sudden everybody wants to go back and listen to my old stuff. And it was never really monetized before. We never distributed it anywhere. It's not up anywhere. Well, let's help you get that up. Let's help you put it on all the streaming services, get it on YouTube, get all your, if your publishing is open for that old stuff, it may be, it may not be, then let's claim that as well. I mean, there's a lot of avenues to help really any artist, because there's things they're going to be missing.
Absolutely. Jason, could you, I guess, let us know? So we've reached out to StreamCut and we want to get our money where we're not getting our money. When should we have already reached out to a lawyer? Like, when do you as an artist or producer or songwriter or whatever, when do you reach out to a lawyer and understand these contracts and different things that you have to have, whether you're signed to a label or not?
Yeah, usually people come to me when it's too late, right? They say,
Right.
what did I sign? What does this mean? No, you should obviously try and reach out to a lawyer from the beginning if you can, definitely before you ever sign anything, whatever it is. So many guys, almost all my clients, have signed something they didn't understand, and now I'm going back and trying to explain it to them and tell them what have they gotten themselves into and how can we help. And Phil touched on that before with what his company does is sit down with guys and say, what have you signed? What music have you made and what have you signed? And let's try and figure this out and figure out what are things we can't touch because somebody else has rights on that and what are things that we can help you with.
To that as well, in terms of like copyrights and trademarks, we've touched on this briefly in previous workshops, but my question is, are you copywriting each song? Are you trademarking your name? Like, what are the things that you recommend for an artist in the beginning stages? Let's say they're working on their debut album. What are the steps that they should take in terms of like copyright and trademark, whether it be for their name or the actual project itself for the copyright?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have many clients who are dealing in trademarks. There's probably more of them that should be than are. But I think for most newer artists, a trademark's not going to be as critical for you in the sense that, let me take that back. In a world where everything was free and you could do it, yeah, go get a trademark in your name if you can get one. Sometimes you can't get one in your name. But that's going to cost money with a lawyer, just paying the trademarking fees. It's not probably where I'd spend my first dollar. Copyrights, you can do that yourself on copyright.gov. You can file for your own copyright protection. It's a great idea, but what a copyright or trademark enables you to do is enforce rights in something you own, in that name, in that song. And where that becomes important is if you ever need to file a lawsuit against someone. Hopefully, you don't get to that point. So, and copyright's interesting. You actually can, they call it the poor man's copyright, but you basically send it to yourself. Writing it down, recording something, you actually have a copyright in that when you do that. The question is, how am I going to enforce that? How am I going to prove it? So that's why it's beneficial to register your songs at copyright.gov to get an official copyright in them. But again, that really helps you protect your ownership if you have to file a lawsuit at a later date. And hopefully we don't get there.
Hopefully we don't. We actually provide a service here at Patchwerk, the paperwork package, where you're able to get it on SoundScan, upload it, get your codes for the songs, all of those things, as well as copyright. So that's something that we're knowledgeable of and can also educate you all on as well. But beyond that, I kind of want to, I know you spoke on this a little bit, Philip, but there are a number of ways, aside from just YouTube, that you can monitor your streams and monetize off of those streams, right? So what are some other avenues or some other ways to get that money, I guess?
I mean, the easiest thing right off the bat is if you have content out there and you own the content, distribute it. Like a lot of guys, and you know, the mixtape websites, which is kind of the world we live in a lot of times, it's what mixtape websites for the most part are promo. I don't think any of you are getting paid directly from the mixtape websites. If you are, you're probably a first. So, you know, you can put that stuff up there. Hot New Hip Hop, Dat Piff, you know, Spinrilla, get it up. People will listen to it. People will download your music, but you're not going to make any money off those websites. My recommendation always is, especially if you're an artist and you have it up and you throw it up on the mixtape website, well, distribute it too. Like get it with a distribution partner. There's some excellent independent distribution partners that you can link up with, in addition to the CD Babies and the TuneCores, that will get your music, you know, within 24 hours out on Apple Music and iTunes and Spotify and Pandora and everywhere. And the way the industry has changed, it's not, downloads, like somebody going to iTunes and downloading your song is really not how people consume music anymore. Some people do. My parents probably buy it that way, and they're 70-some years old. They buy stuff from iTunes. But most people are streaming and getting it up on those streaming services and having a catalog for yourself. So when somebody listens to one of your songs, well, it's going to suggest another one of your songs that they're going to start listening. Oh, you know what? I like that song too. Let me, click on his name and just run his whole playlist down. And let's listen to all of them. And then every time one of those streams, you guys are making a little money. I mean, it's a little money, but it all adds up.
Right.
And there's really no reason not to have your music out in as many sources as you can. So distribution partner, get it out there. If you're a producer and your artist puts it out just on a mixtape site, talk to him and say, look, is there any way we can flip, the tape over to a distribution partner and get it up everywhere? SoundCloud, guys like to put their stuff on SoundCloud. SoundCloud pays a little money, not as much as the other distribution models.
Well, now SoundCloud does something, because in previous years it would play the whole song. Now for a lot of major artists and producers, it's going to play a snippet of it, and then you have to go and then buy it.
Yeah.
So does that kind of eliminate or does that drive traffic to them actually purchasing? Have you noticed, or?
It can help. I mean, it's, the other thing that I like, the smart URLs things, where there's one, I think it's smarturl.it is the one I really like. It's a free service. You should all use it. And it allows you to go in and put your cover art on this URL, to link it to all the distribution. So iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, everybody. And you go to the service, you find the URL, you drop it back into this site. And then what it builds for you is a really nice short URL that you can embed and you can tweet out and you can put on, Instagram, link in bio thing. And then when people click on it, it takes them to this page that has your cover art and has all the different places that they can listen to your song. So they can click on, if you're an Apple Music subscriber, they click on Apple Music. If they're a Spotify person, they click on Spotify. It's going to take them right there into that song in the system, start streaming, and you're going to make money off
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And if I can build on the distribution comment, I think another thing I like people to understand is there are different types of distributors for music.
I was going to ask also what distribution groups you might recommend, or what from your experience of working with these, if you have worked with those distribution groups.
I represent a digital distribution company. There are a lot of different options out there for you. There are what I call active distributors and passive distributors. I think of TuneCore and CD Baby and some of these where you can pay a fee for a song or pay a fee for the year. I refer to them as kind of passive distributors. They're just a way to get your music out there. But that to me is a much better option than the guy who just puts his music on SoundCloud. What these distribution companies will do for a small fee is get your music everywhere. They'll get it on Apple, they get it on Spotify, they get it on SoundCloud, they get it on all these different services. And that enables people to consume or experience your music wherever they like to, on whatever platform they like to use. The more active distributors, in rap, the one most people I know is Empire, Phil mentioned earlier. I don't put too much of their business out there, but I'll say in general, the active distributors are doing things in the 80-20 range. So they get 20% of the money, you get 80% of the money. So that's a change from TuneCore, CD Baby, one of these things where you're keeping 100% of the money. So the question is, what are they doing for that 20%? Are they adding 20% worth of value? And if you're the right kind of artist and they're the right distribution partner and there's a mutual interest in kind of making your project bigger and adding value, it's definitely worth the 20%. For some guys, it's not. They're just not ready yet to get the help that a good distributor can provide. But ideally, they're giving you marketing and promo services as part of what they're doing, but they're also helping protect you for some of the things we talked about earlier today. One of the big problems in rap is copyright infringement, or just a dispute over who owns what, who owns the master, did you take somebody else's beat? Do you own that publishing? So if you're with a passive distributor, CD Baby at TuneCore, and someone comes in and puts a claim against your music, that becomes a problem because those companies don't care. They say, oh, all right, we just froze all the money, and if somebody else made that claim and the claim looks right, okay, we'll send the money over there because you already paid your $9.99 or whatever it was. So
is that kind of showcase or highlighting the difference in the trends of music distributors? Like, things have changed over the years. Obviously, we talked about streaming being the main thing. Like, people aren't purchasing music. So what are the changes that you've seen in terms of, like, what would you recommend? I know you said that, I guess it just depends on where you are as an artist, huh? So whether you would go to a TuneCore or go to Empire, that depends on how you are as an artist, maybe, or where you are. But what do you think the trends, the music trends, what has changed in music distribution over the years?
Lots changed over the years, right? So you used to only be able to get your music out through a major label, was how historically it was, and now basically anyone can get their music out. Right. You could make a song here today and have it digitally distributed. The biggest change, I think, is just the access to that distribution. But the point I really want to make sure that people understand is the rights issue, making sure you're distributing music you own, and that's a big part of what Phil comes in and does.
Yeah, and it's a nice kind of compliment that Jason provides to my company, because we often get into rights issues where, an artist will come to me and say, here's a new song I did, and we look at the song and realize, well, did you clear the producer? No. This sample that is throughout the song, did you clear the sample? No, I don't, we just pulled that from the internet and we just used it. Okay, well, before we talk about putting it up everywhere, let's bring Jason in as my lawyer, and, he will, help us try to unwind all this stuff and deal with these rights issues. And just in hip hop, it's more complicated, and having that extra piece that then gets translated to my clients, because, a lot of them don't come with their own lawyers. And it's a nice part of working with us is that there is this background help that's provided to me and through me to my clients.
One of the things I think Phil does a great job of too, along those lines, is understanding who needs to get paid in every song. So when you think about it, if you make a song, it may have had co-production on it. Maybe you've got two producers, like you said. Maybe you've used a sample. Maybe you've got a side artist who did a verse. Somebody sang the hook. Whatever it is, you have to understand who are the people who need to get paid. Whose rights do I have to clear to make sure that everything that we can sell this and monetize this effectively and in a way that's not going to get somebody to come in and take down the music and claim some kind of infringement. So that's a big part of it.
So prior to actually placing your music online or wherever you as an artist or producer put your music, what are the steps that you need to take? Obviously, you talked about clearing samples and handling that business, but what are some other things that you need to do before you even think about uploading it?
I've recorded at a great place like Patchwerk. I think it's step one. But really beyond that, if you're an artist side, let's talk about the producer, right? Somebody produced the beat. Do you guys have any sort of agreement with them? If you don't, let's talk about clearing the producer. And we can think outside the box here. There's really no rules in this stuff. There's traditions, right? This is how music has always been made. But there's really no reason why you can't come up with a unique model if you're an artist working with a producer, or if you're a producer working with an artist and you guys want to distribute something, work together. I mean, both of you put out this album, and let's figure out a way to pay you both. I've done 50-50 deals where artists gets with the producer did 5 tracks on their record, we distribute it, and basically 50-50 split between the artist and the producer on the master side, which is very unusual. Certainly nothing you're going to see in a major label deal. And independent distribution gives you those sorts of options. So, talk to your producers, figure that stuff out. Get your songwriting written down, know what you have, know where your rights are there. Let's load that too, because traditionally the ASCAPs and BMIs, I assume most of you are probably registered with one of them, or CSAC. they paid a lot of radio money. I mean, that's where most of the money went. And, frankly, radio is not, it's where music is, a lot of music played on the radio, but there's still a lot of streaming money that is paid out for the publishing. So register your stuff with ASCAP and BMI. And again, you need to know your songwriting splits in order to do that. So talk with your producers, figure stuff out. Our philosophy is really, let's pay everybody, right? Like you guys, for so long, the people in this room and people like you who came before you just weren't getting paid on your work. And you now have the ability to unwind that and pay yourselves and pay each other and make sure that everybody's making money and everybody rises together. So I think that's part of it.
Answering your question too, in almost 15, 14 years of doing this, I don't think I've ever had a client come to me and say, here it is, everything's signed, everything is papered up and good to go. Never. So that would be nice if that changed, but I'd probably be out of a job if it did. So understanding the two issues of ownership of the master and ownership or control of the songwriting, I think will help you a lot in trying to figure out what it is I need to get signed and what rights I need to establish. If you're an artist, you want to make it clear that you own the master. When you're working with a producer, I hate to say working for you, but you own the song. You want to make that clear. So if you're going to write anything out on a piece of paper with a guy, you want to say the song title, who owns the master. Well, if you own the master, you're the artist. What's the producer getting out of that? Well, you got to pay him a fee, or you got to pay him an advance on royalties. So you want to establish that. When guys get in a studio or emailing beats or doing things and not exchanging money and not signing stuff, you've left open that issue of who owns the master. Now you didn't figure that out? All right, well now two different guys can distribute that song. Mm-hmm. Why does the artist own it? Why doesn't the producer own it? So you want to establish who owns the master. The guy who doesn't own it, are they getting a fee or are they getting an advance on future royalties from the sales and streams of that? And then the second piece of that is who owns what percent of the songwriting? You're a producer, I'm an artist, we're going to split the songwriting 50-50 and register those splits. And that's what you're doing at ASCAP and BMI. ASCAP and BMI aren't so much focused on who owns the master, they're focused on the songwriting portion of it. What they do is they're a PRO, so they help songwriters collect publishing royalties, public performance royalties that come from places like radio play. But the way the industry's changed so much, and one of the things that Phil's company is great at doing is helping guys register their splits, because you can get paid from other sources as well. YouTube pays money to ASCAP and BMI now. That's a public performance of your music. So if you're not registering your splits, then you're leaving that money on the table when your songs are playing on services like YouTube. So I've seen this with Phil before. Well, he'll have guys come to him and they say, I'm good on ASCAP and BMI. I've got that under control.
I got it covered.
I've got it covered. Mm-hmm. And they'll ask him to help monetize 100 songs on YouTube. And then you look at their ASCAP and BMI registration, they've got 10 songs registered. So people don't understand that if you're not registering all your songs, all your splits with those services like that, then you're leaving money on the table. So that's one of the extensions of his business, is to just help guys do that. He's running basically an administration business. I'll take care of all your paperwork. I'll clean all this up for you. I'll make sure the things you need to get signed and registered are being done so that you have the best opportunity to make money.
You spoke about royalties a lot in terms of, producers getting an advance royalty or just being paid for the beat as an artist purchasing their beat, right? Tell us more about how you, as an artist, secure your royalties, or a producer, how you secure those royalties up front. I'm not a producer, but I think that it's crazy that, this song is maybe playing, it could be a classic song, and it's playing for years to come, and you're not getting any of those royalties. So how, as a producer, specifically, are you going to secure those royalties?
Yeah, do you want to...
Right off the bat, don't sign work for hire, right? Like, you're going to get, especially if you guys don't sign anything and then the song starts working and people start listening to it, you're going to see people come out of the woodwork and try to get you as the producer to give away your rights. here's this paper. It says that you own nothing and we own everything, and we're going to pay you $500 for it and go away. And those are things to be wary of, because we've seen them where not just are they basically paying for the master rights, but they're also saying to the producer, "This is a work for hire. We own all the songwriting as well. So, and you just go away. Here's your $500, go away." And these are songs that then went on to make, millions of dollars. And these guys gave it away for nothing. And so really, from the producer standpoint, be careful of what you sign, especially with major labels. They'll, if you're working with a young artist, this is the pattern, right? You're working with a young artist. He doesn't really have any hits. Maybe he's got a couple stuff that's moving a little bit, and then he runs into just a big song, right? Like he puts something out. Next thing you know, it's got 10 million views on YouTube, and somebody comes out of the woodwork and signs him. Like a big label comes out, or somebody comes out and signs him. Well, the first thing that big label wants to do is clean up that hit song he's got. So they're going to come back to you as the producer. They're going to invite you to the video shoot, make you feel great, like a star for the weekend, put you in a hotel room, and then at the end of the time, they're going to give you a piece of paper and say, "Here, sign this, and we're going to give you $1,000. Thanks so much. You did a great job." And then that's it. And the guy's rights are gone. His songwriting may be gone, and it's a dangerous thing that can happen. So just be wary of that. And again, nice thing about working with us is that I often have producers just flip me the things that they get and say, "Tell me what this is. Should I sign this? Should I not sign this?" And then that's when Jason gets involved, and we look at it together and we figure out, and we call the producer and say, "Here's what this means. You sign this, and this is what you can expect going forward."
And when you talk about royalties too, you have to keep in mind, what is it a royalty from? It's the same, I think I'm repeating myself a lot here, but it's the same thing I said before about understanding, is it a royalty from the master or royalty coming off your songwriting? Right. So when you distribute music, that's the sale of that master recording. It's the sound you hear, the song you hear. You should be getting, whether you're the artist when you're the artist, if you put your music up on TuneCore, you're getting 100% of the royalties from the sales or streams of that master. There are ways, as the songwriter, the producer maybe who made that beat, to get paid from that same song, just not through TuneCore in that example, because that's dealing with the master. Now you're this songwriter. Like we said before, you register your song with ASCAP and BMI. If it's playing on YouTube, YouTube pays the money to ASCAP and BMI. They pay you. Now you're getting songwriting royalties. If it plays on the radio, you're getting public performance royalties for having written that song. If you're a producer working for an artist, you should ask for also royalties on the sales and streams of the master. And that gets back to one of the challenges with independent digital distribution is who's going to account to and who's going to pay these people. You guys aren't, most people aren't lawyers and accountants doing this, making the songs.
Absolutely not.
So you got to figure out, we're going to make a deal for royalties. I'm a producer. I'm going to get paid a percentage of these royalties. Well, how am I going to chase down the money from this artist if he's the one distributing it? So a great situation for you as an independent artist is to make an arrangement with the artist and the producer, both working with the same distribution company, an active distributor like I talked about before, who's willing to pay both of you from the sales and streams of every song. That's a way to get paid off the master.
Thank you. Philip, last thing before we get into our questions from the audience. Since starting with StreamCut, both you and Jason, how have you expanded since? What are some newer services that you've provided, or new things that you can offer to the artist or the producer or whoever is coming to you?
Sure. We've gone from really a YouTube-focused company to going well beyond that, to doing everything from, like I said, the distribution. We've got a great distribution partner in New York called Foundation Media that we work with. That it's a hip hop focused company. They've got 20,000 songs. They've got some really big artists working with them, and we really like working with them because it's somebody you can always get on the phone. And so we've placed a lot of our guys in the distribution network and helped them kind of sort all this out. Beyond that, we have transitioned into helping people, like I said, shoot videos. We put clients together and we're trying to develop original content. We're looking at apps. I don't know, you guys have stuff on the app sites, Musical.ly, Triller. They don't really pay anything, but we help clients get their stuff on there because it's promo. You know, if you get a song and you start
Triller, that's like the videos you make when you're
30-second, Juju on the beat that my daughter does,
yeah.
and then so they film it and it becomes a clip that you can repost on Instagram, and they get a lot of views. I mean, those things really drive traffic, and so Triller's not going to pay you guys. But the nice thing about Triller is that there's 1 million kids who are going to watch your Triller video and be like, kind of like the 20-second snippet of that song. Where can I get it? And then they're going to find your stuff because you guys should all be distributing stuff. They're going to realize, oh, I can listen to it on Spotify. I can get it on YouTube. I can get it these other places. And so that's a nice way to drive traffic. Social media strategies with artists, we're doing that. We're trying to connect people together. People that do have really big Instagram followings together with artists who may be up and coming so that they can both, again, share revenue, work together, bring everybody up. I'd recommend that for all you guys to work together. I mean, this is not a competition. Like, guys in the industry, you put something out, hit your friends, ask them to repost and link to it, and you do the same for them. I mean, that stuff's important.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Courtney. We're going to take some questions from the audience if you all have any questions for either Philip or Jason.
My name is Aubrey Pompey. I had a question about production. You mentioned about owning the masters, or who owns the masters. If let's say an artist downloads a beat from YouTube, right? Is there a way that the producer can own part of the master even if they aren't present when the song is recorded?
Yeah, that artist just violated your copyright right there, right? So you're not allowed to take other people's music from YouTube or the internet or wherever. So the guy whose rights got infringed is on the upper hand of that conversation if they can find out about it, if they're working with a companies like Phil's who's going to come in and try and turn the tables on that situation. So anytime you're working with someone and using their music, you need to have a written understanding with them to fully protect yourself that says who owns it, who gets paid what off it. That answer the question?
Yeah, and even if it's not there, even if there's something that's not written, somebody just steals your beat. We have this that happens to a lot of my producer clients. Somebody comes in and steals their beat. We have the ability with the YouTube account we have and the tool we have to go in and actually put claims on other people's videos and claim them back. And it could just be a publishing claim. Like if somebody comes in, producers in the room, you guys may have had somebody remake your beat. You see this a lot. Like somebody does a beat and it goes on a Kodak song and it's a great beat and Kodak does an original song to it, whatever. And then somebody comes in and does an instrumental remake of that beat. So there's no vocal on top of it. They just remade it. Well, you as a producer, if you made the original Kodak beat, you have rights in that and that YouTube video this other guy made. And through a company like ours, we can go in and put a publishing claim on that other video and claim that money back for our producer client. So in that specific situation, absolutely. If somebody steals your beat, you should immediately try to get in touch with a company like ours to say, hey, I need to get control of that. I need to take that song back, and we can help you do it.
Good morning. Myself as an artist, like as far as track buying the exclusive rights, like if I buy a track and I get the exclusive rights and they have a sample in the beat, and the song happens to take off, once I buy the exclusive rights, does that fall on me to clear the sample, or that falls on producer?
It depends what your contract says. I mean, ideally, you want to define that. The reality is it's going to fall on both of you.
Mm-hmm.
You, as the artist who bought the exclusive rights in that beat, want to look back to the producer and say, well, what'd you do to me here? But the guy who got infringed, the music that's sampled, is going to turn to both of you and say, you got a problem.
Give me my money.
What happened with Robin taking Pharrell?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, when it comes to split sheets, you said as an artist you own both publishing rights and what was the other rights that you said?
The master,
The
the sound
masters.
recording, what you
Okay,
hear. the
so when
final
it comes
product.
to split sheets, where is it that you want to make sure that you, as an artist, mention this?
So, it's a good question. A split sheet historically has just defined the shared ownership of the composition, the songwriting portion. You're saying, I wrote all the lyrics, so I get 50%. You wrote all the music, so you get 50%. That's of just the songwriting historically. That's what you take to ASCAP and BMI and register your splits. What that document typically doesn't do, but it could, if you just wrote it in there, is define now who owns the master, who owns the sound recording, who's got the rights to put it up on CD Baby, to distribute it. That's what I was trying to point out earlier. And that's really just, you can just write that on there. Owner of master, me, write your name.
Because the problem is,
Sign it.
it was always just assumed, right? It was always assumed that the artist owned it or the artist label owned it. And now the way the industry's changed and it's this independent distribution model, it's not as clear. And so, the traditional split sheet may not have that, but there's no reason you can't write on there when people sign off, this is, the master is 85% owned by the artist and 15% owned by the producer, whatever numbers work, or solely owned by the artist, so carve it out.
Okay, so you guys mentioned like possible distribution of ownership for songs. Well, you mentioned the producers and the artists. So say it's songwriters, and say it may be 2 or 3 songwriters on a song for a hook and a verse, maybe. How can it be fair, for everyone to get a percentage of the ownership or a part of the master without pretty much giving away the whole song when it comes to more people being on a song?
I think it's tough. It's tough to get everyone paid. That's what I mentioned earlier, that I think Phil's company does a great job of trying to figure out who needs to get paid and making sure they all do. But that really starts with distribution. It starts with who's selling the music, who's making it available to the public. If you don't have a working relationship with that distributor or through someone who does, you're not going to get paid. So that's where it all starts. As a songwriter, even if you're left out of that picture, you wrote this song, you don't even know how it's being sold, you don't know who's selling it, there are still ways to get paid through other services, like I mentioned, ASCAP and BMI, Harry Fox Music Reports, all these things that Phil's company will get done for you. But ideally, as a songwriter, you want to enter into an agreement with the guys who are performing the song and say, here's what you're going to pay me from all of this. Here's my percentage.
And beyond that, specifically to your point, I think there's no rules to how we're going to chop up that 50% of the songwriting on the vocal side, right? Like, if there's 5 parts to the song, there's 3 verses, there's a hook and a bridge, and you guys say, well, we're going to give 10% to each one. I mean, that's an arrangement. I mean, that's sometimes what we do when there's no agreement is we listen to the song with the artist, and then we try to divide out, there's 2 verses, and there's a hook, and the hook repeats twice, and then there's a bridge, and we basically do a math problem and then say, all right, is everybody cool with this? Like, this seems like a fair distribution of the songwriting on it because of these components of the vocal. Does this work for everybody? And a lot of times you can take a fair assessment of it and say, yeah, if the hook is amazing and the hook drives the song, maybe the hook's worth more, right? And just try to come to some sort of understanding based upon the parts of the song. But there's no rules, right? It's whatever you guys can work out and agree to.
Hello, guys. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Morning. This is Mr. Fat. I have a two-part question, and I don't know which one of the guys will be able to answer which one. But so my first question is, how many, like when you say on the split sheet, like how many possible items are there that on the split sheet? Like I know you said the mastering, you said like the songwriting part. Like that was first. I was trying to get an understanding of all the possible splits.
Yeah, what you want to, and historically what a split sheet would have is just the name of the writers, their legal name, a place for everyone to sign, the name of the song, and what percentage of it you wrote. That's typically what you'd find on a split sheet. And ideally, everyone's going to write their percentage, write their name, sign their name, sign the same piece of paper. Now we define that. If that's the only thing you're doing with guys, I would try and take it further than that and get more of an understanding of the other side of it. Who's going to own the master recording? Who has the rights to distribute this thing? So if the answer for you is you always want to be the guy, you want your name to be there, to say master recording owned by me. Now, if you're going to do that with the other guys in the room, they're probably going to say, wait a second, why do you own it? And if you own it, pay me in advance or pay me a fee. That's if you're not going to pay guys and expect to own it, that becomes a little trickier. Maybe you paid for the recording time, but what's the basis for you owning it? That's the...
How you doing? How you doing? I'm Beat Dilla. Earlier you mentioned about the letter direction. I actually got a situation where with Warner, and they was basically telling me like, you receive a confirmation, this such thing with their sound exchange and things like that. But I'm probably a year into it, and when I look at my breakdown on like my PRO, I don't see like SoundCloud. I see YouTube, I see Apple Music, but I don't know, is there money being left on the table, or did I not
SoundCloud or Sound Exchange?
Not like SoundCloud.
SoundCloud.
Yeah, I mean, I was under the impression like you also receive money from SoundCloud as well, but I do see like I said, rap CDs and things of that nature. But I'm just unsure whether or not I carried on the letter direction properly, because I was like back and forth with them, so I was trying to make sure I did everything correctly.
Well, the letter of direction, when we use that specific term, the most common thing that is used for is with Sound Exchange, which is Sound Exchange is this company that gets money for non-interactive streaming. So think about Pandora, right? Pandora, where you can't pick a specific song with Pandora. You say, I want to listen to Lil Uzi, and it plays one song from Uzi and then jumps to another one and then maybe back to another Uzi song. So that would be non-interactive because I cannot pick the specific song. So Sound Exchange sets money aside, but it really only wants to pay the artists who are named in it.
Yeah, that's what they was telling me. Like, only the account holder will have the ability to.
So what you need from Sound Exchange, if you're a producer, so you're not named in this song, you need to go back to your artist or his label and try to negotiate a percentage of that Sound Exchange money where the artist is then going to sign off on that letter of direction. So that way, when Sound Exchange starts to pay, that money will go and flow to you. Otherwise, they're going to pay it all right to the artist.
But see, that's what I'm saying. Like on the actual paper, it's like explicitly written out like me and the artist and our percent. And I'm just thinking, okay, that's just what I registered to my BMI. I'm not thinking like, okay, should be expecting a check from Sound Exchange?
You need to go take that letter of direction and you need to load it with Sound Exchange. Like you need to file it with them, then they'll have it. And once they have it, if everything checks out with them, and even Jason could tell you, even if Sound Exchange has a letter and it's signed and they're supposed to be paying people, they won't necessarily always pay people.
Yeah, okay.
So sometimes you have to fight with them. You got to tell them what your rights are. They may come back and ask questions. It's complicated. We do a lot of Sound Exchange work for guys where we are loading it for them because they're in your situation and I'm just not getting paid. Help me get paid.
Right.
So it's one of the more complicated entities to deal with, but get it signed, load it with them, create an account with Sound Exchange, load it with them, and then follow up with them and call Sound Exchange directly.
Let me just try and help clarify one thing on that too. Sound Exchange, as Phil mentioned, is collecting on the master side of performance. They're collecting for sound recordings, what you hear. They're paying the artist who performs the music and the label that sells the music, owns the music. ASCAP and BMI are paying songwriters. So they're totally different things. Songwriters are getting paid through ASCAP and BMI. Artists are getting paid through Sound Exchange for non-interactive digital plays, like you said. So if you're a producer, you're left out of that Sound Exchange money unless, as Phil was saying, you get this letter of direction signed from the artist saying, I, the artist, direct some of my money to this producer and whatever percent that is. And you can go on Sound Exchange website and type in letter of direction. You can see they've got a little packet. You can download it. And as you said, you fill it out, send it to the artist and say, please sign.
Yeah, I don't want this to carry too long, but I mean, from the paper itself, it had like my, like what I would be due, and I just was under the impression like I would receive monthly checks from Sound Exchange or some type of idea like that, but it hasn't been happening like that. So I actually called Sound Exchange a few times before, and they've told me to, go through the lawyers that you were working it with, what I'm saying, that type of ordeal. But everyone tells me go to the other guy, everyone, what I'm saying? So I'm kind of in the runaround.
Come talk to us afterwards.
Yeah,
I could probably help you out. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Slim, Square One ENT. My question is more in regards to the trademark. With so many artists popping up and, constantly researching, I'm seeing a lot of artists that are actually rapping or producing up under the same title. Like it's I've seen 30 Little Schoolies or Real Money Mills or whatever the case may be. So how does that work? Like if one of these artists trademarks their name, how can they like stop other artists from using that name, that title? Because now the industry is, once you come out and you make a name for yourself, that's pretty much you. So how can trademarking, once you get to that point, what's the best way to just proceed once you get everything, all the paperwork lined up?
Yeah, it's a hard problem and a good question. The thing to keep in mind with a trademark is what you're doing is you're filing an application. You're asking for trademark protection. It doesn't mean you'll get granted it. So that's why I was saying before, it's not necessarily the first place I'd spend my money if I were a new artist, because you may not be granted a trademark. And it's not an instantaneous thing. There's a process. So what you're doing is applying for trademark protection and saying, here's my name. And it can't just be any word. It's got to be something unique and something identifiable and something protectable. If it's not, they may just reject the application and say, sorry, we're not issuing you trademark protection in that name. So then I don't want to say you're out of luck, but now you're back to where you were in the beginning. Somebody else is using my name and I was denied trademark protection in it. So now what?
You also have to go out and actively enforce and put people on notice when they're violating your mark. So, or else you basically waive it. So, you would have to spend all your time. And there's big companies, and this is what big companies do, is like Coca-Cola has a whole team of people that all they do is look for people that use the word Coke or Coca-Cola and send them letters telling them to stop doing it because you're violating my rights. You would basically have to go on kind of a crusade like that. And it's just from your original question, it's frustrating for us occasionally. We'll get people that come to us as new clients and their name is something that is so generic, meaning it's just a common name like M16 or something like that. Put M16 into YouTube and try to find anything specific to one person and you just can't do it. So to the extent that you guys can distinguish yourselves with your branding, be it adding a second word to something, green M16 or something like that. Just some way, and use the internet tools, right? There's all these really cool tools out there that'll show you what you like websites that you could buy that are available, like what www. Whatever's, and they'll make other suggestions for you as far as names and branding, and if the Twitter is available and the Instagram is available, that sort of stuff. So just be unique with the name. Try to find something that really nobody else is using. And when I search it on Google, it's going to return you. So important. Okay. Anybody else?
You want to finish your question?
No, we only have time for one more question. And then you guys can kind of talk to them personally.
Yeah, we'll hang out for a few minutes afterwards. We'll talk to some people.
Okay. Well, my name is Angela Parks. I'll just have this question. I have more questions, but I'll wait till afterwards.
Sure.
But dealing with the BMI and the ASCAPs, I was overhearing, because I did a lot of research and everything goes on that. If a person performs at a club associated with ASCAP or BMI, do they get a check for that? Like for them, they got to show themselves video cam, and the artist performed that song that they have registered to BMI or ASCAP. Do they get a check for that? Like, for example, for a club that they're performing that's kind of connected to do promotion through ASCAP or BMI.
You're supposed to. I don't know how frequently it actually happens. So if you're a place that plays live music, you're supposed to register with both ASCAP and BMI and get a license that authorizes you to play live music. And when you do that, the songs that you perform at your place are supposed to be reported to ASCAP and BMI so that those songwriters can get paid for their written works being performed. Does it actually happen everywhere? Probably not. But in theory, you are supposed to get paid as the songwriter of a song that plays at a club. And the club should have a license with both ASCAP and BMI, typically.
Okay, well, let's give a round of applause for both Philip Stein and Jason White here. I appreciate you all for taking the time out once again to hang out with us.